Word in the scuttlebutt says that, yes, there is a declaration of emergency coming down the tubes. FEMA is also preparing for a possible coronavirus emergency declaration. What does that mean for us? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. I have pulled up briefly what a declaration of emergency would mean for us. But let's read this part first. The Federal Emergency Management Agency is planning for the possibility that President Donald Trump could make an emergency declaration to bring in extra funds and personnel to assist the administration's coronavirus response, according to internal documents obtained by NBC News. FEMA officials are preparing for an infectious disease emergency declaration by the president that would allow the agency to provide disaster relief funding to state and local governments, as well as federal assistance to support coronavirus response, according to agency planning documents reviewed by NBC News. That will bring in quite a bit more resources, but that will also restrict quite a bit of laws, rules, and regulations, which we will get into here in a minute. To me, this is another indication that the President and the White House are finally aware of the gravity of the situation, said Michael Cohen, who was FEMA Chief of Staff during the Obama administration. They need to consider all tools available to them and have contingencies for action. I actually find this reassuring, said Tim Manning, who is a FEMA Deputy Administrator under President Barack Obama. I hope this discussion has been happening continuously over the last couple months. An emergency declaration would allow FEMA to provide disaster medical assistant teams, mobile hospitals, and military transport, among other kinds of federal support, Manning said. So what exactly would an emergency declaration do for us? Well, this is by no means an extensive telling of what authorities and actions can happen during a state of emergency, but this is a brief overall look. I highly encourage you to research it yourselves and educate yourselves because it will change things drastically. Actions and authorities triggered by state emergency declarations. The declaration of a state of emergency triggers an array of authorities and actions by state and or local governments. Depending on the type of emergency declared and the scope of authority granted to the state official making the emergency declaration, the actions and authorities engaged by a state emergency declaration can include activation of state emergency response plans and mutual aid agreements. Things will be repurposed. Fire trucks may be repurposed from fire trucks to transporting who knows what. News helicopters could be annexed and said, hey, you know what, we need this news helicopter for transporting personnel or medical supplies or whatever. Activation of state emergency operations center and incident command systems, basically forward operating bases. Authority to expend funds and deploy personnel, equipment, supplies, and stockpiles. Releasing supplies that we're all going to need, like, I don't know, gloves and, masks that we, for some reason, don't make here in the United States and we depend on China for, which is stupid. We should be making those here. Activation of statutory immunities and liability protections for those involved in response activities. Basically, if they're doing something and they're trying to help someone and something bad happens, they're not liable. Think of it like Good Samaritan laws. Suspension and waiver of rules and regulations and statutes, if allowed. Basically, laws. Suspension of your rights, essentially. Streamlining of state administrative procedures such as procurement requirements. And when you delve into the procurement requirements, that basically means that if you have something in your home and they believe that it will help aid in their struggle, then they will come take it. They don't have to ask for it. They don't nothing. They just have to come take it. So those are possible things that could possibly happen. As we have said in my previous video, it does appear from doctors are saying that, yeah, this will reach into the thousands by next week. If we reach into the hundreds, like 300-400 by midweek, then we know we're going to reach 1,000. Man, this thing just, it's playing out like every outbreak movie we've ever seen, isn't it? I mean, this is just crazy. But protect yourselves, educate yourselves, get your sources from multiple sources. I love you guys. Stay informed, stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.